Blue Period was something that worked when it came out in 2021. It has a very straightforward premise, a story about painting. The name Blue Period has a few explanations. First, it is used to describe a period of time when Picasso drew his painting in blue as a way to reflect his journey in Spain, and a way to remember the death of his close friend Carlos Casagemas, a man who shot himself because of love. Another reason why it is called Blue Period is because, in Japan, the color blue is used to represent youth. Need not to say the characters in Blue Period are quite young. The anime also captures the title quite literally in the very first episode. It changed the grayish city landscape to this blue translucent future. The protagonist, Yatura Yuguchi, floats in the air as if the whole city was submerged under ocean. A surreal scene that was inspired by the afterword of Blue Spring. No matter how passionate you were, no matter how much your blood boiled, I believe youth is a blue type. Blue that indistinct, blue that paints the town moment before the sun rises. The show also touched upon other stuff that an artist often hear, like the topic of talent versus hard work. It tries to tell us that we often overlook the work of a painter and just merely call them talented, an accidental backhanded compliment. It's a show that really tries to get into the mind of an artist. It is not a surprise that people love this anime. But for me, the most memorable part, the best episode, in my mind, was episode 5. It still got stuck into my head. Yatura was struggling with his creation. He was given a task to draw an oil painting that represents what is important to him. He decided to use bonding as the topic, but his teacher was not impressed with the final result. The idea of using string as bond is too cliché, not unique enough. So the following episode tries to depict his struggle in making a good painting. It shows how he tried hard to understand art. The pivotal moment occurred when he got inspired by others' painting. So he went to his class, looked at his 162 x 130 cm canvas, and started to paint. From splashing line to stroke of ideas. The brush flew on the canvas like a meteoroid. Sparkle of flame rose to life. It's no longer a painting but an inscription, a metallic structure that imbued with passion. And what you get is this. It's beautiful. It is a painting with major significance. Even the author acknowledged this, because in the museum exhibitions for Blue Period, the painting was included. It is such a memorable painting that someone on the internet made a 3D model out of it. The hot glowing core almost remind me of the Weather Project by Olafur Eliasson. Even though the sun is fake, you can't deny there is power just by looking at the color. Your vision is giving you warmth and temperature. However, there is part 2 to this painting. With 3 minutes left in the episode, it somehow was able to tell another story. After this painting, Yatura got better and better. His teacher praised him for his improvement. He was on a winning streak. But when push came to shove, when Yatura needed to compete in a competition, his drawing failed him. And the reason is obvious. Even a layman can understand it. He was copying his own artwork. You can't just do the same things over and over. Faced with such frustration, the episode ends with Yatura saying, "Just because you are doing what you like, it doesn't mean you are always having fun." When I first saw this episode, I thought this was brilliant, because can you see what is happening? An artist is being disliked for drawing the same thing, and it's not fun. But as a manga artist, what do you have to do? You have to draw the same things over and over and over. The fate of a manga illustrator, no matter how good you are, still cannot escape the fact that most of your life you are reproducing the same image over and over. And maybe, just maybe, it's not fun. People might criticize your art style as mundane, but it's not like you can do anything after you have established your style and tone during serialization. So I thought this episode was a meta commentary. It's a way to fan the frustrations of a manga artist. Even in the exhibitions, you can tell one holds more weight than the other just from the size alone. But there's an even more brilliant detail. If the frustrations for manga artists are truly about the self-imposed limitation, the lack of freedom in creating whatever you want and stick it to the panel, then the choice for Tsubasa Yamaguchi to write about a topic involving painting is the cheat code. You can show your drawing prowess while at the same time maintaining the form of a manga. It opens a gateway to whatever drawing style that you like and not be confined to the medium. In my mind, this all sounds logical. Then I decided to do a bit of research. At first, everything seems to follow my line of thinking. Yamaguchi was a student that studied art at university, the same situation as Yatora. So now it seems even more logical to think that Yatora is a self-insert for Yamaguchi. It can be seen as a way to maintain what she learned from art school and transfer it to manga to break the conventional repetitive art style. However, as I went deeper, I found out she said drawing manga was actually the main things that she has always dreamt of. She even used the medium of manga as one of her university projects. Not only that, the painting that I have seen in the anime turns out were not mostly done by her. She said if she drew everything, then every painting would have the same style, and there would be no difference between characters. So she actually asked her friends to provide paintings that they were willing to share. When I first heard this, I thought, okay, it is an understandable thing to do, and it is a logical move. It still doesn't revoke my original thought on episode 5. It has to be more meaning in recreating the same style. But then I realized watching Blue Period in anime is deceiving, because as it turns out, in the manga, Yamaguchi will tell you who made those paintings, and these two paintings were not made by her, but by her friends. It seems like drawing the same things twice really is just a struggle for Yatora himself. It is not this meta-commentary about the repetitiveness of manga illustration, a skillful artist that gets confined to the same topic. Because if it is about that, then Yamaguchi would draw those paintings herself. Only then can Yamaguchi express her hidden, unused painting skill. This is not the end. The worst thing has yet to come. I found out other iconic paintings from Yatora were also not made by Yamaguchi herself. The idea for Yatora being a self-insert for Yamaguchi becomes more of a dream. If she really wants to align Yatora's struggle to her own story, it is more logical to feature her own work in important moments. So when I see Yatora's struggles, it really is just about a fictional character struggling to create. Someone who is not real, trying to create something original. I felt a bit empty when I knew this. It's not like it doesn't work, but my own interpretations have led me on. This makes me feel like scratching my feet while I have my shoes on, or taking a shower without taking off my clothes. It's like a video game but with no big boss battle or dragon for you to slay in the end. It just ends, and with a fictional character left in a fictional world. This oddly reminds me of another copying artist. you have just witnessed is the opening for the game Comma, a game that came out in 1998. And right off the bat, I already noticed something strange about the game. It is strange not because of the stylistic choice. Though I must admit, a point-and-click game is very different from its peer at the time. It is strange not because it is an obscure lost media, so obscure that I decided to watch someone else to play it instead. It is also strange not because of how boring it is to actually watch someone else to play it. I basically forget 99% of the gameplay after I finish the walkthrough. So in this sense, it is strange for me to go from watching few hours of boring gameplay to sitting here promoting a game that is not particularly interesting to watch. Well, this is because what captures my eyes is not the game itself. It is the strange design of the box cover. At first glance, you might think it is the same game with different localization, but you would be wrong. They are in fact the same game published in the same place, so it looks weird. Why it is Chinese at the front and English at the back? And if you are even slightly knowledgeable and observant, you would know there are actually 3 languages being represented here. This particular word is not Chinese, it is Japanese. So what's going on? Where did this game actually get published? I can give you a few seconds to guess, but most likely you will have never guessed it. It's a game that got published in Hong Kong by someone named Cao Choi, and the reason for the boss design I think is explained in one of the interviews. Cao stated that he wanted his work to represent something universal and not culture dependent. This artistic choice makes sense even not knowing him personally. The city, Hong Kong, has always known to be a harbor city. It is a place where the East and the West met. Not to mention, when Cao was born, Hong Kong was still a colony. This idea of blending the East and the West goes further than just box design. During the walkthrough, you will encounter Renaissance thinkers or people like Albert Einstein. Even the building structure, according to Cao, was designed that got inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, an American architect who famously blended nature and building as one. Cao stated that he was amazed at how different culture seems to come to the same conclusions with similar concept to beauty. He claimed that the traditional Sichuan house is built like a German old house. This sense of accidental beauty, I guess, was what Cao was chasing after. Beauty that could be reinvented even if we reshuffle history. He also recounted his experience when he visited the residence of Du Fu, a great poet from China, someone who was so good at making poems that he earned the nickname of being Sage Poet. Cao said his house was surrounded by green environment. It is a wet atmosphere submerged in green moss. The moss is so fast that a drop of a stone would immediately be swallowed by the lush in the pond. He therefore thought that the essence of Asian Oriental architecture does not lie in the Forbidden City, but inside the deep mountain, a hidden place for intellect. After providing such background, it is then no wonder why Comma looks the way it does. His intention to find meaning from the West and the East forms a backbone for this game. You could even say Cao was built to create this game. After all, a Japanese producer can refer to himself as Hideo Kojima. An American producer can call himself Gabe Newell. But only someone from Hong Kong would call themselves Cao Choi, a common English name mixed with a Chinese surname. So with that in mind, is it so surprising for me to reveal Comma was copying a game from a Western developer and an animation from Japan? The former influence was the game Myst. Came out in 1993, Myst is unlike any other games. There is no flashy laser beam, no stain of violent outbursts, nor is there any technical sequence of input. What it has was You can hear waves rushing to the shore, birds chirping in the forest. This is not the sound that you would hear in 90s video game.
Round one, fight.
Reporting. Moving out.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
This is the sound of nature, a system of mechanical machine that recaptures the forgotten past. Electronic devices were reverberating the settled home, the day before they turned into molten minerals. This mysterious civilized island is both a fence and a life. And you as the player need to point and click through the screen to find the hidden story and puzzles. It is a game that cares less about motion and more about your attention. It was a breath of fresh air at the time, and this would be the very first game that Cal had finished from start to end. It is like the general direction that games were heading at the time. It was just all too unappealing. He tried to find other games like myst, but his effort came in vain. So he did what any sensible man could do. Quit your job and start building your own game. With his past academic background in architecture and some musical knowledge, plus his coding skill from college, he started his own studio. He made the game full-time by himself. From sound design to actual design, from publishing to answering questions like, would it be safe to order online? Or where can I order commerce? Which really makes you realize this is really 1998. Cal himself, against all odds, tried to make the game, putting in 3 years of effort before the internet was even a thing. He was gambling with his life. This all happened because he encountered a great piece of art. He was replicating the art to perpetuate the legacy of not his own success, but his own feeling, a transformation of becoming. But with all this being said, what is the story of commerce about? Well, it was set in a fictional universe where dragon-like or dinosaur-like creatures once lived with humans. But there seems to be a cycle of birth and destructions in the world of Commerce. Dinosaurs who used to rule the world seems to get purged by some sort of disaster. This gave rise to the human civilization. But the human did not rise without help. There were these beings of light who helped humans and facilitated the fall of dinosaurs. However, the day of destruction seems to be approaching for humans too. You, as the 28th comer, are set here to stop this process. You are here finding out what actually lies on this island. So you slowly uncover Da Vinci is a previous comer. Albert Einstein is a previous comer. They all try to investigate the secret. It is only until your arrival we finally figured out what is going on. The world that we are living in is like an experiment for the light being. The dinosaur was a threat to the old world, so the light being replaced them with human. And now the evilness of human is a threat to the current world, so the light being wants to doom humanity with another form of species. It is now your job to persuade them and let us live. And strangely, the light being possessed in places that you would have never thought of, inside the trees. So the ending of Commerce actually involves a bunch of trees flying to the sky. This is obviously a reference to another influence of Commerce, Castle in the Sky. In that movie, Ghibli named the fictional castle that floats in the sky as Laputa. Laputa technology was first created by God, and it was given to humans as God slowly abandoned them. The people chose to live in the sky because they are tired of endless fighting on the ground. So you could say in some way, Commerce is like a prequel to Castle in the Sky. After all, it was revealed in the very end, the castle is just a giant floating tree. This is what happened in terms of the lore of the story, but one cannot help to think there is a deeper meaning. If you are lucky enough and go on the Commerce website, you might find these words. A man who spent 3 years to learn how to kill a dragon. He finally got the skill, but found no dragon. The dragon that Gogh was referring to sounds like the dragon from Comma. That's not it. In one of the interviews, Gogh was asked why Comma was only sold online. Is it because the lack of interest from the publisher? He just replied, Comma is sold online because there seems to be no other way out. I did contact many publishers and got the impression just like you said. Most importantly, let me ask you something. When was the last time you played a game from Hong Kong? If you have never, then you basically already foresee the fate, the result, the legacy of Comma. The steps of the pioneer are nowhere to be seen, even when the trees are out of sight. I don't think it is absurd to even think Gogh self-insert himself as a 28th Comma. As an educated man, he certainly hoped he would achieve something like the past intellectual. His first breakthrough would of course be Comma. But just like what Gogh have said, the essence of Asian Oriental architectures lies inside the deep mountain, a hidden place for intellect. Mountain. What kind of mountains have no trees? What does light mean if not hope? A desolate place that slowly turns into desert. Somewhere along the line, he must have felt this dooming fate of his own project. A sense of dreadful realizations for all artists. The realization that his artwork, at the end of the day, did not get captured by words or photograph. It was phantom on display. A reflection in a mirror. A song that makes no sound. Words that makes no speech. Color that leaves no figure. A legacy that has no impact. In the end, he was so full of himself, but left no trace of him. But that was predicted when you get captured by mirror. This is why there is no final big boss battle, no slaughtering dragon, but just this, you and your place. This reminded me of a line from Du Fu's poem. It's a piece of work that lamented Du Fu's frustrations with his old age and failing legacy. 飄飄何所似，天地一沙鷗. Wondering and wondering, what do I resemble in this world? A sandgull that drifting in between earth and heaven. It's quite a fitting line. After all, the name Comma means someone that comes or arrive. But arrive where? Go to what place? Well, it is in the title. 天國之走廊. It means hallway to heaven. But even after saying all this, there is always this underlying spark, cinder that doesn't stop burning when I think of Comma. To quote Gogh, when being asked, how does Comma sell? He replied, during Comma development period, I really don't know if myst-type games are still people's favorite, or if a publisher is willing to publish that type of games. Think of this analogy. A man spent 3 years to learn how to kill a dragon. He finally got the skill, but found no dragon. For that, I got a reply saying, why don't you learn the skill to kill lion, tiger, or even wolf? I wondered, well, they are all small animals. Would you like to play a quality game or loads of so-so ones? Remember how I said I don't remember 99% of the walkthrough? Well, there is always this 1% that I will remember. One of the very first puzzle with the words myst art on top. It is obviously talking about how the legacy of myst is art in Gao's mind. But in order to start the game, you need to turn myst art to myst art. Van Gogh is an artist that needs no introduction. He was in Family Guy, he was in Doctor Who, he was in JoJo. It can be transformed into a Pokemon card and be sold at 8,000 euros, or have you transforming yourself as part of Van Gogh paintings when you find out there are numerous upon numerous of virtual exhibition. At one point, there was even an exhibition problem where the city of New York had two Van Gogh exhibitions at the same time. One is called Immersive Van Gogh, while the other is named Van Gogh The Immersive Experience. It is safe to say, just like anyone from the past, Van Gogh also suffered harassment from the future. Copies upon copies of different Van Gogh, which is quite ironic because copy is the last word you should associate his art with. When artists were drawing this and this, Van Gogh would be the one who drew like this. It is so stylish that even a child can recognize it. Take Starry Night as an example. It focuses on town and not people. The brushstroke is wild and bold. It is also dreamlike and doesn't feel real, which makes sense, because when Van Gogh was drawing this, he was in a mental asylum. He couldn't draw at night, so he used his imagination and memory to paint it. Some said that the cypress tree on the left can be used as a metaphor for death, while the 11th star on the sky a reference to Joseph in the Bible, someone who had a hard life because he was being sold as a slave by his brother. It is a piece of work that says dream, death, and the longing for legacy. The only problem is, this is not Starry Night. This is a replica that was made in a place called Dafin Village. It is the world's largest oil painting village. It was founded in 1989 by a businessman in Hong Kong. He took 20 painters with him that year, but now there are over 10,000 of them in the village. They are the one who created the painting that you see, the one in gift shop, not museum. And our protagonist is someone called Zhao. He and his families have drawn over 100,000 Van Gogh copies. They live and breathe inside the studio. And just because they are replica doesn't mean people in the village do not take them seriously. One of the painters got scolded because he couldn't correct his mistake even after 3 attempts. He threw the paintbrush and said he was not going to do it anymore. But what could he do if not painting? Look at his skinny body. You can tell he wouldn't last long outside. For them, painting is not a game. It is not for fun. They paint to survive. A creative process that got boiled down to input and output. And the reason why Xiaoyong chose to be a painter is because he heard you can earn a lot by replicating painting. He himself couldn't even finish the first year of middle school. His mom straight up told him she had no money. So after years of replication, he can immediately tell the color of a painting is off. He also trained his wife to be his first disciple. Then slowly, his brother and uncle also joined in. His wife focused on Starry Night and Sunflower. His brother focused on Cafe Terrace at Night, while his uncle focused on self-portrait. As for Xiaoyong, he can draw anything. He is the master of Van Gogh. But this is not enough for him. There is this dying dream for him. He wished he could go to Amsterdam and see the real work of Van Gogh. However, the same problem happened again. It was too expensive. It was too expensive even when his Neverland Gallery client was willing to pay for his meal and accommodation. He had such a strong tie to Van Gogh, so much so that one night he heard a knock on the door.
有一个晚上，我敲了门，梵高真的出来了，哇，出来跟我画的一样啊！哇，当时梵高问了我了，小勇，你现在画我的作品怎么样了？我说，我已经继续你的状态了。这个时候我手伸过去，他突然之间不见了，这一下我就醒来了。哇，这原来是个梦啊！哇，那一个晚上我坐到床上，我一个晚上都没有睡着，满脑子都是他，都是梵高。
He and his colleague would even watch movies about Van Gogh. They wanted to understand what drove a man to paint like this. What desire is under those colors? What story could be told by a painting? In an effort to fulfill the urgent need to see the world, he and his family even went to a place full of replica landmarks. It was, after all, their only chance to feel like they were out of this village. But it was not all bad news. Xiaoyong tried to convince his wife that his trip to see Van Gogh's real work could improve his own skill. He also applied for a passport, and surprisingly, it was easy for him to get one. So when he and his team finally could go to Amsterdam, they were so happy that they even threw a karaoke party. With all these hopes and dreams, he picked up his gear and finally arrived. His first stop would be meeting the client who bought his work. He proudly claimed his work, and his Netherlands client even happily suggests if he swapped the work of Xiaoyong and Van Gogh, no one would notice the difference. However, with all that being said, his expectation didn't match reality. This whole time, he thought his client had a prestigious gallery. He had never thought it was just a small souvenir shop. He also noticed when his paintings were being sold in Amsterdam, it cost 500 euros. But the payment that he received is just around 60 euros. Needless to say, this had a great impact on him. But we still haven't talked about the main event. What would he feel when he finally saw the real painting? Well, he just said,
颜色不一样。画了梵高作品20年了，抵不到博物馆里面的一幅作品。昨天一个晚上都没有睡觉，我一直在想，回到中国之后我该怎么画下去。
The final stop was where Van Gogh rests his place. Paris. They went to Van Gogh's grave, laid down the flowers, lit up the cigarette, and tried to pay tribute to Van Gogh by putting it up like incense.
我相信他也看到我们两个过来了，一句话，生的伟大，死的光荣，在我们心目中的存在。
Then Xiaoyong went back to his home and retold his experience in the museum. He recalled an anecdote that didn't get captured by the camera.
照片跟现实之间的差距
太大。
就像我们看那个旅游景点啊，
对，
看到照片，
对，
跟我们现实去看的感悟是不一样的。对。就先不说，我们看到原作那种激动，就听到赵老师说的，就很激动了，心里。
博物馆的人呢，怎么跟我说？他说哦，你是画梵高的，就是画了20年了，那你 OK， 非常好。他说，你有没有你自己的作品？当时我的压力在哪里呢？我就吓我一跳，说我自己一幅什么作品都没有，我只是在临摹梵高的画，一直在临摹。我到底有没有成为一个艺术家，是吧？我到底有没有什么东西值得别人欣赏？
重要是你自己内心怎么感受，你自己内心怎么去做，怎么去表达你自己，让人家认可你。
梵高，
明白吗？
梵高他画的不是现实，他画的是自己看、自己想的东西。
如果梵高跟着当时的每样写实走，我告诉你，今天没有梵高，
肯定没有梵高，
今天就没有赵小勇，
肯定没有，
肯定没有，
清楚，你要明白这个道理。
撑不起这个话，一直提醒我了。
我只是不明，我只是说，因为我跟大哥也说了，我想去学走写实的，我知道这也是很那个的，但是现在走写实是。
小叶，你已经按照自己的思路去走吧，按照自己的思路走没事的，正确的。
不会像，我不想像梵高那样悲惨结局，所以我
那不是，那不是那个什么那个概念，因为一代不一样了，不一样了，
是不可预测的，
不一致的。我也
画的那些就是我自己非常看好的。
你看，我觉得小一哈这个人很优秀，对梵高，我觉得小一对梵高，小一，只是我也很想哭哎，你知道吗？但是男人嘛，是吧？想唱就唱，我们想画就画。
不能让这个悲惨的结局再次发生。
我知道。
对。
梵高他是想拥有幸福的家庭。
After that encounter, he no longer just wanted to copy. He started small, using his own world as inspiration. At the same time, he used what Van Gogh taught him as a jumping point. And when a person passed by and said, "Just take a photo," he adamantly said no. In the end, he said,
我们是搞自己的东西，然后呢，用我们自己的一种方式去搞一些作品。今年1年也好，明年也好，你创作一幅作品就行了。跟你说，你把思想放在这一幅作品里面就行了。我的生活就是我的艺术，就是这样，正常的。我们不要现在，我们也许50年、100年，也许这个时候有些人能欣赏我的画。也许现在我们画的画，别人说哇，这些人画的画不行，什么东西？画等到50年之后、100年之后，哇，突然之间就是说我们就是他那一代人欣赏我们的画。对。
For me, this is the best Van Gogh copy, because it is the only one who stops trying to be Van Gogh. Anyway, it's time to find some color, because it is time to paint on the canvas.